Hi, today on Baku Network we are going to have a little longer journey to France, a country that has been much attracted by the conflicts and major events in the South Caucasus, especially the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia that has had many ups and downs over the past 3 decades. But what France's connection be with these things? A country that is miles away from this region. We'll try to find answers to all these questions, and we have a guest today on Baku Network, Jean Brun. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for welcoming me.
So, Jean-Michel Brun, journalist, CEO of the Gazette du Caucase magazine, Muslims in France. Today is going to find answers to all these questions. And Jean, since Azerbaijan regains independence, the relations between France have been bilateral within the political, socio-economic, cultural and other spheres. So we can give a little larger examples from this cooperation carried out in, let's say, such areas like energy, environment, let's say transport, agriculture, and many other spheres. However, all of a sudden, the relations between these two countries suffered a crisis following the Second Karabakh War. So what do you think that caused France to suddenly turn against Azerbaijan?
Well, first, I would say that you may know that the close relations between France and Armenia are not new at all. France has been for over 15 years the second largest investor in Armenia, just behind Russia. But what is true is that until now, this closeness was not directly directed against Azerbaijan. Why? Just because there was no military conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But when the war broke out, instead of adopting a neutral or better position, France preferred to take a stand against Azerbaijan. This is a little bit surprising because it is neither in its economic or geostrategic interest. So why? You have to understand well that Emmanuel Macron does not conduct his foreign policy based on a world view, as did, for example, General de Gaulle or Jacques Chirac. He acts in the short term and slowly for domestic political reasons. Macron has chosen, like his two predecessors, but a little further than them, to adopt the rhetoric of the far right. And this far right is largely made up of those nostalgic for France's imperial grandeur. The result of this is in one hand, a neo-colonialist policy, particularly in Africa and North Africa, and on the other, a contempt for the cultures of former French colonies, and particularly, of course, in North Africa, in Maghreb. The result you can see every day is quite catastrophic. France has been politically and economically extruded from quite whole Africa. And in France, the government applies a policy of a discrimination we call Islamophobia to its own Muslim citizens. I just returned from Baku, where the International Forum Against Islamophobia organized by the Baku International Multilateralism Center, was held. In this forum, of course, the issue of French Islamophobia occupied a central place. This is why the right-wing politicians who have led Emmanuel Macron in their wake have sought to present the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia as a religious conflict, with Armenia defending Christian civilizations against a Muslim country that wants to destroy it. So I won't dwell on this foolish view of things because we have no time, but it explains the French position. Of course, this ideology should have been swept aside by French public opinion, but it benefits from a powerful ally, the very large French Armenian community. There are approximately 800,000 Armenians in France, concentrated in the three main cities, Paris, Marseille, and Lyon. This diaspora carries significant weight on the French electorate. But the sheer size of this diaspora is not enough to explain its influence. For example, the Muslim community numbers over 13 million people. And
well, I would actually ask this question because we don't see a very large number of Armenians living there. Demographically, we see that Muslims are making a larger portion in the nations, but they have very strong influence in there. But that's the interesting part of it.
Yes, they have a very strong influence, and on the other hand, the huge Muslim community don't have this strength. Why? Of course, there is a reason on the side of the Muslim community which is divided, but this is not the main reason. The main reason is that the worldwide Armenian diaspora has invested heavily in France, and particularly in communication and press. Today, virtually all mainstream media outlets, both print and television, are headed by Armenians. And the French Dasnak party leader, Mourad Papazian, with the help of the diaspora, has invested heavily in the French journalism school. He owned most of the French journalism school. It results a clear distortion of information in favor of Armenian theories, which, of course, influence the French politics.
Okay, so we talk about like French government or diaspora, a big diaspora that's protecting Armenians from France, but let's say I mean, the issue is that Karabakh conflict ended, and especially after 2023, the operations in Karabakh against the separatist regime of war criminals that was conducted by Azerbaijan. And all of the separatist regime was ended, seized in Karabakh. And Armenia acknowledged the realities, recognizing Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. So, but this did not immediately affect France's position. That's the interesting side, because fiery statements against Azerbaijan continued to come from France. And if you recall, even Azerbaijan's declaring two French diplomats persona non grata, or the most recent Olympic scandal, let's say, became a hot topic in the country throughout the world. So what was that brought to such a major power into confrontation with Europe's reliable partner? I mean, Europe's reliable partner in energy and in many things in the South Caucasus, i.e. Azerbaijan. So why France just took itself, separate from the European Union, and it just stood very firm in its position against Azerbaijan?
Well, yes. In fact, you have two points of view. The first one is because yes, we are all noticing a sort of escalation of the disputes between France and Azerbaijan. The first reason is, of course, that the French Armenian diaspora is made by, it's always the case of the diaspora, of really extremist nationalists. And of course, they are leading the far right politician positions. On the other hand, the multiple visits of French elected officials to Armenia, remember their noisy declarations in favor of independence of Karabakh.
Yes, yes.
You
Continue the separatist ideas, it's rhetoric, exactly.
Even as France defends Ukraine against Russia's desire to annex Russian-speaking province of Donbass,
Right,
the French government should have the same attitude, but they have
that's
not.
right.
And all this has finally exhausted, I think, the patience of Azerbaijanis. If you add to it the clownish attempt at espionage by manipulating this poor French entrepreneur Martin Ryan. It was really stupid, And if you also talk about the conviction of Theo Claire, who committed vandalism in the Baku metro, and the reaction of the French government, which cried out because of this about dictatorship in Azerbaijan. I understand that this made Azerbaijanis angry. On the other hand, the Azerbaijan's support for French anti-colonialists has infuriated the French government.
Yeah.
You know that I myself listed as a threat to national security. Just because I participated in the conferences of the Baku Initiative Group. When I cross the border, I'm stopped by French police. But you know something, if Emmanuel Macron may be inconsistent, he's not stupid. And this is why during the Tirana summit, you talk about that.
By the way, we'll come back to this with a question.
Yes,
that's a very interesting part of it.
Yes, he sought to establish a closer ties with his Azerbaijani
That's
colleague.
right. Yeah. By the way, you're right. So I would like to direct a question now. As you mentioned, the EPC summit in Tirana, which the president of Azerbaijan attended by a special invitation. But what happened there, I would like to know. So particularly President Macron's warm and friendly demeanor. So during his meeting with President Aliyev, and honestly, so it left many with the impressions that there is a renewed hope for the restoration of France-Azerbaijan relations, that many came with this kind of ideas. So what do you think, can such a warm attitude from Paris towards Baku be sincere after so much tension in their relationship? So what do you think about that?
Please don't make me laugh. Talking about sincerity in politics is a little bit contradictory. We often say that politicians are such liars that we can't even believe the opposite of what they say. No, there's one thing you should know about Emmanuel Macron. You may have noticed that he is everywhere. in Russia, in America, in Africa, and just now in Vietnam. It's as if he wants to accumulate as many photos as possible in the presence of a foreign head of state. More seriously, he wants to try to prove that he controls the international situation through his physical presence uh, everywhere in the world. Regarding Azerbaijan, as I said, Macron knows very well that it's time to end hostilities. If France ever needs to get closer to Azerbaijan because things are going badly in Armenia, because due to an energy crisis, we need Azerbaijan's natural resources, Macron will be able to say, look, I was the first to reach out to President Aliyev.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, President Aliyev, the excellent geopolitician that he is,
He's
immediately,
a kind of foreplayer. He wants to foreplay and show off that yes, I am the
yes,
and
he
that one
just
step ahead.
yes, that he was not hostile to a future reconciliation. And what did he do? He pardoned the graffiti so-called artist Theo Claire. It's you know it's very clever. Okay, my friend Macron. Okay, you want to be friend with me? Okay, no problem. I'm ready for that. You know, he's like that.
Okay. All right. Actually, many commentators have noted that President Macron holds a deep admiration for the president of Azerbaijan, given this attitude, the handshaking, the body language, and everything else. So, due to his successful policies, especially President Aliyev's successful policies, both in the Caucasus and on the global stage, let's say. So it seems President Macron now sees the future of his country's connection with the South Caucasus in the normalization of relations with Baku. So, in your view, what could France's main interests in the Caucasus be going forward?
Yes, first, Macron realized that Ilham Aliyev was the main leader in the whole Caucasus. It's very obvious. I myself met the President Aliyev 3 times, and with a lot of foreigner experts, and we're all very impressed by the attitude, the personality of the President Aliyev. It's very, very, very impressive. And this guy is clear. He answers all the questions without any notes, and he's also charming. You know, he's a very charming guy. And so Macron is very, you know, he's very sensitive about the charming of men, you know. And this is the first point. The second point, of course, is for Macron understand perfectly that promoting rapprochement with Azerbaijan would help stabilize the South Caucasus and contribute to peace and security in the region. He could, by this rapprochement, regain its position as an influential player in the Caucasus. He failed being this player through the how do you say I don't remember. You know this organization between America, France, and okay.
Anyway, no problem.
Anyway, so he think he can play again a mediating role in regional conflict, and thus increasing its legitimacy on the international stage. He lose in Africa, In America, he can regain it in the Caucasus. Furthermore, as I just mentioned, Azerbaijan is a major supplier of oil and gas, particularly via the Southern Gas Corridor. A rapprochement could facilitate energy partnerships and diversify energy supply sources for France, and not only for France, for the European Union. And France could also be interested in various hydrocarbon extraction and transit projects. Also, because of its hostile stance, France has already deprived itself of numerous investment in Azerbaijan, particularly in the field of public works, which France excels. Of course, I'm thinking about the reconstruction of Karabakh.
You think that France really realizes that it's losing the chance to have an investment in Azerbaijan, and it needs extremely to have also a share of investment portion in Azerbaijan? Do you think so?
But of course, imagine a company like Bouygues, like Vinci, they see all the investments made in Agdam, Shusha, Fuzuli.
That's right.
Yes, you have Italian, English architects,
Exactly.
and you have train rails and everything. So they, of course, realize that they have lose all these big opportunities. And
yes, at the moment, yes, that's right.
Macron, but what do you do? Armenia doesn't have.
It's not a fruitful partner, to be honest, right? It's not a fruitful partner to stand with Armenia right now. So it doesn't give it to it. Yeah.
Its economy is completely down, and it's not an interesting country.
Good for nothing.
Yes. So this big company tells Macron, stop.
And instead of all the things that France is doing now, they are just protesting in Yerevan, right in front of this embassy of France, and just protesting against the foreign ministry, blaming France that they didn't really protect us. So for what? So they blame Russia, they blame even France, the closest ally of itself. So how can they rely now that France is really regretting probably the what has all lost over the past, years?
Yes, you know that now France is in a very, very, very difficult situation. You may know that in Africa, for instance, in Africa, you have all the main resources in uranium, in rare metals, in nickels, and so on. Previously, France was leading all these industries, and now they lose everything. So it's a big problem. It's why that they ask for a partnership with Kazakhstan for uranium.
That's right.
They're in a very, very difficult situation. So now they realize that their policy is, as you say, not fruitful.
That's right.
And so they realize that they have to change this policy. You know that we have also in France huge opportunities with Azerbaijan in so many sectors. Talk about, of course, the infrastructures, technology, agriculture, and of course, our local economy could take a lot of advantage of these trade opportunities. And there is also another field which is quite important, because you know also that France is losing his cultural influence in the world, and with a close cooperation with Azerbaijan, we could develop cultural and education exchanges, promoting French language.
That's right.
You know that some company like the Natixis Bank said a few years ago that France could be the second or the third language in the world in 2050. But now this perspective is quite down.
It's losing now.
Yes, because in Africa, for instance, they say, okay,
That's true.
the French will not be anymore the first
Sure,
language.
exactly.
The new relationship with Azerbaijan could really reinforce French culture. And as you may know, we have a history of a real link between French and Azerbaijan culture. And even the Azerbaijani, despite the French government's attitude, continue to be close to French culture. I have personally witnessed that when I come to Azerbaijan, French culture is much appreciated. So this is also a big opportunity to reinforce the French cultural influence in the world.
That's right. Thank you so much for talking too largely and just answering the questions and for your valuable thought. Jean-Michel Brun from France, CEO of Le Gazette du Caucase and Muslims in France magazine.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. And today our guest, as I said, on Baku Network, Jean-Michel Brun from France, and we discussed the French-Azerbaijan rapprochement. Thank you for watching us. See you later.